Hello, my name is Piper Merrill, and I'm so excited to be doing this podcast. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I have 30 years experience in pediatrics. I've been all over in pediatrics. So as an RN, I worked for 11 years in the pediatric ICU and just crisis management for patients and for parents, helping them with the challenge of just having a child in the ICU. And then I went back and got my master's at UNC, and I've been practicing as a nurse practitioner for 20 years. I'm currently in an outpatient clinic in general pediatrics. I love it. I love what I do. I love the kids. I've always been in pediatrics. And I enjoy just general pediatrics. I've done ENT. I've worked in the ER. I've worked in urgent care. But my passion really is mental and emotional health for children. And so I'm going to share with you just tips on how to help children with their mental and emotional health, how to build a culture, a family environment that will build healthy mental and emotional health for children. I think we know right now in our culture, everybody's struggling, not just children. Everybody is struggling. And so I think we need to get together and do this together. Some other interesting facts about myself is I've been in 30 countries doing medical missions. I love learning other cultures. I love being around other people from other countries. That was part of my growing up and challenging myself to step out of my comfort zone, to be in the unknown and get comfortable with it. And that's helped me a lot, even in my practice. I'm also a certified life coach. I got certified 4 or 5 years ago. I basically use that right now with my patients. I'm really enjoying being in general pediatrics, and during the well checkups, what I have started doing with the children from all different ages, and I'm still kind of learning how young I can go on what questions I can ask. But after I do the physical, just growth, height, and all that stuff, I ask him, so what would you say if I asked if you were healthy? And many of them say yes. And I say, well, as a human being, to really be healthy, it's mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So I ask them, where does that fit in? Where do you think they usually say, I eat right and I exercise. That's kind of my indicators of health. So I say, so how do you know if you're mentally and emotionally healthy? And my goal in doing this is just getting kids comfortable with the terminology of mental and emotional health, which, just so you know, and I'll explain more of that, the cumulative word for that is behavioral health. You'll hear that as well. Or when you're searching for a podcast, behavioral health, it is a combination of our thoughts, which is mental, and our emotions, which equals our behavior. So I really try to help kids in primary care start thinking about their mental and emotional health and how that has affected their life. Another fun thing that I did was I moved to Australia. I took a sabbatical from working and moved to Australia to do an international leadership college. I really was challenging myself once again. I grew up in the Bible Belt in the South, and I am a Christian, and many times people would say, well, you're just a Christian because you grew up in the Bible Belt. And it had me questioning myself, maybe just because I think this way because I live in the South and I'm around Christians all the time. So I moved there, and I love that I found out I had probably 70 countries were represented in that leadership college that I went to. And it's interesting. We all spoke the same language, and we had a lot of the same interest. And what we were learning about God, what we were learning about ourselves, learning to lead ourselves. That's what this college was about. That's what I found out. I really went to leadership college because I didn't feel like I was a leader. I would have people pull me into leadership roles, but I was so intimidated by that because I didn't see myself as a leader because I had the wrong perspective of a leader. I really thought a leader was someone who's very organized, has it all together, doesn't mind speaking in front of a group. I didn't like any of those things. I really, to be honest, had total fear of speaking in front of a group. That was this part of my journey of how I got interested in mental and emotional health. Was I had anxiety starting in my early 20s and really turned into full-blown panic attacks. Quite scary. If you've ever had one, you feel like you're losing your mind. You don't have control over what's going on in your body. And so I started educating myself and learning about panic attacks and learning about anxiety. And so that was a big step for me to move to Australia and investigate what is a leader. And I learned a lot. It changed me because I learned sometimes our perspective, meaning how we see things and how we view things, is inaccurate. And yet we base our behavior on that perspective that's inaccurate, right? So I wouldn't step into leadership roles because of what I assumed a leader was, and I wasn't. Well, I found out I can lead. I learned how to lead. So you can learn how to do things that maybe you're not good at or doesn't come natural to you. So that's exciting. I've had a fun 30 years of my career. I love it. There again, my passion for this subject comes from a journey of working through anxiety and panic, what that looks like. I can say I struggled up until my 30s with that. I grew up in a very unhealthy home. Now, one thing you'll know on this podcast, I want you to know up front, if I talk about parents, if I talk about unhealthy behavior, there's never judgment involved. I think people do the best they can at the moment that they're at. So my parents didn't grow up, they're in their 80s now, so they didn't grow up in a culture that taught or really talked about mental and emotional health. Both of them came from very different backgrounds, but they got married very young, 17 and 21. I'm sure they didn't have a clue about each other. But anyways, mother started having depression, and she had suffered some trauma and abuse in her childhood that she didn't know how to process mentally or emotionally. And my dad, I don't really know much about my father's upbringing. He says he went into the military at 19. He says that saved his life. He was living in the projects at the time in New Jersey and really was getting into trouble with kids and things going on. And the military, he went in that. But he's very intense, very much a perfectionist. And so we grew up in a home. Mother started self-medicating for the depression and the anxiety, and she started drinking in her probably, I want to say, 30s or 40s. I was around 8 years old. So you don't always know how your upbringing is going to play forward and what that's going to play out in, what it does really to you mentally, emotionally, and then which is turns into your behavior. And so I had to kind of learn that's what the anxiety was coming from, was when you're in a home with abuse, substance abuse, or any other kind of trauma, insecurities are formed. And also some of my anxiety came from, I didn't feel smart in high school. I did okay. I made A's and B's. My sisters both made straight A's and it was easy. So I kind of thought I wasn't smart because of how they did. But so I started out as a hairstylist. I wasn't academic in high school, so mother was smart. She sent me to cosmetology school. I had big red hair, and I had to learn how to do this stuff. So it was smart. It kind of helped me get a career, and so I started doing hair. But I started at that point, once I was in it for a couple years, started having these anxiety and panic attacks. Well, you can't very well cut hair if your hands are shaking, and you're so nervous you can't really focus on the client. I was focused on what was going on in my body and my mind, and I felt like I was losing it. So I just started searching for help and started getting some counseling. And I actually found help in my church, which I didn't grow up in a church. So this was new for me. I was surprised. A friend led me to my church, and there was mentors there. And I just always gravitated toward people I could learn from. I knew I couldn't find it at my home. What I wanted, what I needed, leadership, self-leadership. I wanted healthy thinking. And so I found that in the church, and that really saved my life. As I kind of told you a lot about myself and where my passion for mental and emotional health comes from, my heart in doing the podcast is speaking to parents, young parents. Parents are all different ages now, right? So that's great. So I picture, since I work with, start seeing the kids at 3 days old, up to 18, that's kind of my parents that I'm going to focus on right now, because I know parents want to help their child any way they can. And that's their treasure. And so I think it's so important, and I've learned over 30 years of being in pediatrics, the power of a parent, how we know that if we don't heal our wounds from childhood, our trauma, and trauma comes in all different levels, correct, right? If we don't process through that and find healing and answers, we will project our anxiety, our fear onto the kids. And then we end up parenting out of fear where that behavior or that thinking is going to take them. So mental and emotional health, let me kind of just give you a little what that means. So mental health, and I kind of give you a very simplistic, a neuroscientist would probably just drop over if he heard this or she. So your thoughts produce your emotions, and then we act on it. That's our behavior. So many times we're trying to change behavior. Stop fighting, stop overeating, stop undereating, start working out, start exercising. But really, you cannot sustain a behavioral change until you go back and figure out, what was I thinking that produced the emotion, and then I acted on it. Because your thoughts are what's driving the emotions and the behavior. And we'll talk about how our thoughts formed, where do they come from. They do produce brain chemistry, so that's producing the emotions. And many times we don't always know why I feel what I feel, but if we can trace it back to thoughts, then we can trace the emotion and the behavior, and that's when we can start the healing process. So it's understanding how the brain works. And I'll go more in each podcast, I'll go a little deeper in the science behind a thought and emotions and behavior. But why is mental health, why does that matter to you, and why should that matter to you? Why do you want to work through your pain points in life? Is so you don't pass that on to your kids. You know, we say generations, right? An alcoholic. My dad's dad was an alcoholic. He's an alcoholic. Of course your kids are going to be alcoholics. No, it doesn't have to be, of course your kids are going to be alcoholics. You could break that cycle. It could be you that breaks that cycle. And what it will take is a lot of work. We always think it's easier for everybody else. I did. I always was very angry that life was hard for me sometimes, hard mentally and emotionally, I think. But I assumed it was easy for everybody else, but it wasn't. When I would actually start talking to people that are real, and that's the ones I really want to be around, that can be real about their strengths and their weaknesses, and let's help each other. Being fake and being superficial really doesn't help anyone, to be honest. And your kids need to know that you're real, that there's days that you don't have good thoughts. There's days that you don't have good emotions. And maybe I acted out at work today that wasn't very attractive. And, you know, as a mom or a dad, you could share with your child, you know, I could have probably acted a little different today at work. I got really mad at my coworker because he didn't do what I thought he should do when he should do it. I could do better. So I think it's important to be real with your kids and to talk to them. You know, I do think, and I kind of go into this another podcast a little deeper, but family time, we got to get back to that. Around the table, turning off the internet, turning off all the noise, and having those quality conversations. I talked earlier about having panic attacks when I was doing hair because I never learned how to have a quality conversation, something deeper than the weather. Now, I get it, parents. A lot of kids don't want those quality conversations, but if you start it young, 3 and 4 years old, 5 years old, say, we have family time. It doesn't matter that you like this or you don't like this. You're teaching them self-control. You're teaching them to control their emotions, control their thinking. They want to go play. They want to go do all this. No, we're going to have quality time right now. And we're going to talk about how your day went. And obviously, you're going to adjust that to the age of the child. But they will look forward to that time of quality mom and dad time. Do you have to spend hours? No, kids don't want that either. 5-10 minutes, one-on-one, focused attention. You're not distracted on your phone. You're not distracted by who's calling you, where you're going next, but you are focused on that child. That is what kids need. Even teenagers need that. I always tell young parents when they come in, the best thing for you to do is look at your childhood. What did you love about it? What didn't you like about it? Because usually you will go to the extreme. If you had very rigid parents, you're going to be very liberal and not want to set boundaries, which boundaries are healthy, right? We always know extremes are never healthy, right? We need to find balance. So you have two people, husband and wife, coming together, and now you're going to raise this child. And have you really talked about how you grew up? You probably have talked about some of how you grew up. But it's good to go back and look at, what did I love about it? What didn't I like about it? There again, you're not judging your parents. I love my parents. Did I grow up in a hard environment? Yes. Could I have been a mental and emotional wreck? Yes. But there's grace. There's grace, because it doesn't do me any good to stay bitter and angry at what they did. That just hurts me there again. So the more you heal your life, the more you can help your children grow and learn from your mistakes. I think there's always boundaries on how much you share of your life. I think at different stages of their life, you can share different things. But even with the little ones, when you overreact to a situation, you can say, "Oh, Sally, I'm so sorry. Mom was really tense. She was thinking about something else she had to do. I'm sorry. I kind of said that harsh. I don't want to talk harsh to you because I love you. And I know that affects your emotions and that hurts." It's very important how we talk to our kids. I'll talk a whole podcast on words, the energy behind the words you need to realize or recognize. Am I angry when I'm talking to my child because I don't like their behavior? Self-control. There's a great book called Scream-Free Parenting by Hal Runkel, and it's all about self-control. Parenting is really about the parents. It's not about the child. Children are going to trigger things in us, but hopefully when we do our work, we're going to be able to have grace for them. They do need boundaries. I'm not saying so much grace that you don't bring correction, but we'll also talk about positive discipline. That's different than punishment. And how do we positively discipline them? What does that look like? Wow, I know I've given you a lot of information, but I want to add one more thing that I want you to think about is why your mental health matters to you and to your family. If you think about it, life is all about relationships, right? Relationship just means relating to others, how I relate to others, whether that be a coworker, students, classmates, authority figures, or parents, grandparents. So what my mental and emotional being is and how healed that is will affect how I treat others. Parents, how you manage your mental health is a model for your children. And that doesn't bring guilt or shame. It brings knowledge and awareness. And hopefully it brings inspiration. You'll never be a perfect parent, just like there's no perfect human beings. And that's why there's no perfect kids. So I have had a parent say, "This is a really hard child. He kept saying that over and over and over. "This is a hard child." Now, this child was, I think, 6 or 9 months old. So I knew in that moment I had two very intense parents. Now, this was a baby, even I'm telling you, 2 to 3 months old, this baby cried a lot, fussy a lot. But both these parents, I could peel them off the ceiling when they came in. They're worried about every little thing the child's doing. Now, do they love that baby? Absolutely. Do they want the best for that baby? Yes. but they're both very intense. And I know that baby feels that. Even in the womb, Mom, I would tell you, so important, so important. Eating right, exercising, taking care of your mental and emotional health. Physical exercise is definitely taking care of your mental and emotional health. Having some quiet time when you don't have kids. I know that's hard. That sounds great. But if you can build that into your everyday life, that you think, you know what? It's not selfish to take time to myself. And I think it's healthy to teach kids that. Mom needs some me time. I need to sit with a book that I love. I need to sit with no phone, and I don't want any distractions. And I want you and Sally to go in the room, and I want you to find a good book, and I want you to get off the iPad. I will say that over and over. The internet and the iPhone were both created with their marketing strategy to create distraction and addiction. I think they've been successful. Not that they're bad. It is a business. If there was not consumers taking it, it wouldn't be successful, right? So we can't blame others for our behavior, right? What we can do is evaluate it. Yes, internet is good. Yes, the iPhone's good. It has brought some distractions, right, from the kids. Our kids are addicted. We're addicted. We've got to work on that, guys. We keep talking about it, but no one's changing the behavior. Now, I also want to speak to the parents who are like, okay, my kids are in their, teens, or they're 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever age they are. They're 20, they're 30. Yes, we can go back, and I don't know that you actually reverse what's been there, but you can go back and heal there again. As you start growing in this knowledge, your children can grow in their knowledge, and they're going to learn when they're parents. They're not going to do everything right. And in life in general, they're not going to do everything right. There again, we still love them. And you tell Johnny, I'm just trying to do the best I can with what I had. I didn't know at that time. I had a mom tell me the other day, she's probably in her 60s, and she said, oh, me and my daughter had this amazing conversation, and I just had to ask forgiveness because I thought I was doing the best thing for her at that age, but come to find out, I gave her a message that I didn't mean to give her. I overprotected her. I didn't allow her to do things that really probably would have encouraged her growth, but making her anxious about it and fearful of it wasn't helpful. So yes, there's always hope as you grow, but I'm going to tell you, the things we don't change, we choose. I know, I don't like that either. Whatever I'm not changing, I'm choosing. So choose to get healthy. So Mom and Dad, this is a great way. This would take incredible humility, incredible courage to maybe sit with one of your children and say, what would you like to see Mom and Dad do differently? But I think you hold them accountable in that as well. Okay, John, I'm willing to, and I know I keep using John, I hope they don't get offended, but we'll say Sally. How would you like Mom and Dad? What could we do different that would help you in life? Where are your stress points from us being parents? Where are your stress points? And, Sally, are you open for us to say how we feel, kind of some of the things that you do make us fearful? That's really not your problem. Our behavior is about our behavior. Our behavior is about us. But I don't want to parent out of fear. So this is how I think you have to just sit and have those honest conversations. At any age, you can heal. At any age. And Dr. Caroline Leaf is a neuroscientist who I do much of my study with. She's just come out with a great book that I would advocate, and it is How to Help Your Child Clean Up Their Mental Mess. Well, I would say we could probably use this on how to clean up our mental mess. I think as you read this, that I think also it'll help us clean up our mental mess, because I think many times we don't even know what we're projecting onto our kids. We don't recognize the fear that we're instilling in them. I know you want them to reach their full potential, and you can tell them that. Sally, I want you to reach your full potential, and you stay in bed till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the morning, day. you're not going to reach your full potential because I just don't think you're going to miss out on opportunities. So that's where my stress comes from as a parent. So there again, it's quality conversations. But parents, it's having self-control. It's having self-control. It's creating an environment to help them think without. If you've always reacted to their thinking and their thoughts and their behavior, they're going to expect you to react. So if you can surprise them and have some self-control, many times we react because we have an adult mind, a mind that's older than them. And so we play that behavior forward, and that scares us. So we react, right? But that's parenting out of fear instead of faith, right? So you can maybe ask questions around so you want to go to that party. Who's going to be at the party? What are they going to do at the party? What could happen at the party that might go bad? What could happen if you had 3 drinks or 2 drinks and then drove? What could happen? I know you're saying you're not going to, but what could happen? I just need to know that you can play that forward. And yeah, playing it forward for them is helpful. So I hope this has helped you. It's all about just starting the journey. Parents, it's about starting your journey. And if you've already started, then keep learning. But here's the deal. Change. Start making positive changes, because I think we're inundated with a lot of knowledge in our world. The internet, you have so much knowledge. But guys, change is hard. So if we don't change, we don't experience change. That sounds very simple. But I hear people all the time that say, I want X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, what have you done to move toward that? Well, I've read something, da-da-da. Have you done what you've read? Well, not yet. So I'd like to see you take action on what you know, and start small. There again, we want to start with, I'm going to change 5 things right now this week. Yes. No, you're not. Change 1 thing this week. Change 1 thing. That would be your action step. So the next podcast I'm looking forward to is I'm going to explain more on mental health, what that is, how do we develop healthy thinking skills in us and then in our children. Have a great day.